So if you listen to that and then listen to the original, yeah, it's pretty full on. What was I thinking? I was about to master a track that I've been working on, and I was going to just make it sound better by mastering, and I realised I wasn't recording it. I wasn't making it into content for you guys. What was I thinking? So here we go. I haven't thought about this in advance. This isn't a planned thing. I've just got a track where I'm using entirely Apple loops to make some music, just for fun. Just on, I did this when I was on my couch with the TV in the background, just mucking around. And it's quite a fun way of being creative. It is sort of dragging things and chopping them and making music out of loops. So yeah, Apple loops is great. This is the track I've made. It's got a sort of Eastern hip-hop vibe. That's the intro. And then it's got some... it's Eastern stringed instrument of some kind. Let me know what you think it is. It's got big fat 80s synth bass or 70s analog synth bass. It's got a breakbeat and it's got some like Southern American slide guitar. Then we've got the outro. So, it's not loud enough, it needs to be mastered. Now, I'm not a mastering engineer, but I do master my own music a lot of the time. I'm of the same opinion as one of my favourite artists, Four Tet, who works on his music so intensely and for so long and takes things to the point of completion, checking mixes, obsessing over it before actually releasing it, rather than handing over to a mastering engineer who might change it. Going to divide opinion. There might be people out there who say, well, no, a mastering engineer won't change it, whatever. But, essentially he's also working with samples a lot of the time, and samples off records that have already been mastered. And so the sonic quality is sort of part of his sound, is really like things having a certain amount of life to them and not sort of being squashed or anything like that. So anyway, I like that way of thinking, and I often just run things through some mastering myself. So let's do that now. There's some noise going on in the background, which is useful. So first things first, if you look at the waveform, visually you can see it, it could be louder in terms of its overall loudness there. And I just feel like the overall thing could just be fatter. It could feel more squashed, actually, a little bit more old school, or my analog processing that an old console would do. So had it been pushed through that. There's some stuff going on in the left and right, the stereo width, which could be enhanced maybe. It's quite a lot going on, so it might just need to have a little bit of control. I'm also going to show you one secret weapon plugin that I've got and I use on a lot of things. Will definitely help in this track, I think. So first off, I'm just going to load up an EQ, and I'm going to load up Pro Q3, which is a good one because I like the spectral analysis of it. Obviously, use your ears, but this is very useful. An overall, image of where maybe some little peaks are happening and stuff like that. So let's run that. Look at that, it's so even. That's showing me that there's a lot of sonic information in this track across the whole frequency range, the whole frequency spectrum. There's some extremely super high stuff that popped out in that last bit. And the snare looks like it's got the 2.4, you can see that happening there. You use Pro Q3 for notching and doing surgical EQ, but I can't really see anything in there that needs to be really tackled, if you like. So for now, I'm not going to do anything with that. I am going to try a clipper, because I feel like maybe some clipping would actually do a better job of making this louder than a limiter. Clipping has a different way of making things loud. I'm not going to go into the technical side on that. So there is a full version of this called Standard Clip, which is on my shopping list. Free clip, still pretty good. go, that's doing quite a lot. So if I turn the free clip off, you can see that. It's adding a lot of density and loudness without increasing the output volume. We like that. I'm going to leave that where it was. Saturation. Always like to run things through saturation to see what happens, see whether it improves it. I've got a bunch of different saturators. One saturator that I like that's more dramatic, I find, is the HG2. I say dramatic, but it can be more dramatic. It can also be subtle. HG2 by Black Box, which is a Brainworks Plugin Alliance plugin. And only small amounts of this can really make a big difference. And I'm just going to bring in the saturation, which is already set to 50%, but we can bring that down. So let's bring that in. Harmonics are being added, and it just overall widens the sound, deepens the sound, makes it seem louder. These two knobs here, pentode and triode, if you push them like a lot, you'll hear that's into proper crazy saturated territory. But at small amounts, and then bring the output down. So it's adding lots. It's obviously quite a lot louder. Look at the decibels here, -2. A little bit of red. It's still -2, so it's not, we're not getting to the point of digital clipping. If I turn the saturator off, -4, so it's giving us body, harmonic distortion, and volume. If you want to kind of like gain match this, that's a healthy behavior to get into, so you can hear whether you just like it better because it's louder. So that's pretty much gain matched. 4.2 without it. I like the fatness it's adding, and I'm going to leave those settings in place. And I've got it set to flat, so it's saturating across the whole frequency range. So right now I've just clipped it and saturated it. You could saturate it then clip it. Doesn't really matter in my mind. I'm probably wrong about that. Now, one thing I thought about also is whether some mid-side EQ might be needed, because there's low-end stuff happening out on the left and right. Around this sort of range, I'm going to solo it, and I'm going to go to stereo placement, side, and you need headphones for this really, but this is soloing the side low end. So I can hear that synthesizer, the synth bass, has got some stereo stuff going on in it. I could either go back to the mix and make that mono, which I don't really want to do, or I could mono the bass. So I could do that in one or two ways. The quickest way I've got of doing that is actually using the third plugin, which is my secret weapon, the AMEC mastering compressor. So actually, this is another thing. The mastering compressor could have gone first in the chain or a different order, but in this particular example, I'm confident that it's going to do a nice job after the saturation and after the clipping. Because of the type of music this is, it's got a lot of attack on it, like some snappy sounds. I like the idea of clipping it so that the limiter doesn't have to do too much squashing. Softer music or bigger music, I don't know whether clipping at the master stage is really relevant, really. Tell me I'm wrong. Probably am. Right, so this is AMEC Mastering Compressor. Very clever plugin. No time to really explain it, but I got it for £30 and it's amazing. Right, so all I've got to do is bring this threshold down. Start hearing the magic. But the one thing I wanted to show you before is like this mono maker, bottom left here. This control takes the low frequencies that are in stereo and makes them mono below a certain frequency. So I'm doing that at about 100, about 90-ish, like 100. And I'm going to sidechain the compression on this as well. So the compression isn't happening, it's not being triggered by the low end. The low end can remain intact. And then now getting very close to digital clipping, which we don't want. So I'm going to get the output of this plugin and actually reduce it down, the output gain. And I can turn the input gain up a little bit if I want. This plugin does a lot. Stereo width, I'm going to add a little bit. Obviously we are getting in the red here, so I may be pushing this too much. I have brought the threshold down a fair bit. If I turn this off, it just brings some kind of extra depth and life and width and space and all the good stuff to this. Adding a tiny bit of stereo width because of mono making the bass. I'm kind of shrinking the low end so it's less wide and only by a little bit, and then I'm bringing out the stereo width, which will be applied to the rest of the tracks. It's just now, often when I'm doing a bit of mastering, I will actually use the Oxford inflator by Sonox as well. Sometimes not in combination with other saturators because it can be going too far with the pushing of things, but since we're here, Sonox, I think what I'll do is I'll turn off the black box saturator and I'll introduce this so you can kind of hear it. I don't actually know what's going on inside the Oxford inflator. It's just a great plugin. Now, that's sounding pretty epic. I'm going to try something that I don't normally do, but I actually do this normally at the pre-master stage. And I'm going to parallel compress the whole mix. Just realised the metronome's been on the whole time. So that's the compressor really compressed. The other option I've got for a parallel compressor actually is Pro C2, which I really like because actually it's got a side chain for the low end. Turn that on. Massive amounts of compression happen. That's what you want, because we're going to blend that in. Blending in the parallel compression. Clipper's going mental. Clipper's going less mental now. That's sounding really alive. All of that stereo stuff in the bass is gone, which is what we wanted. One little change I'm going to make is with the channel strip EQ, or one of my favourites, which is Lindell Audio. This is actually a Neve channel strip. I like the top end. I'm going to just take off a little bit. That's boosting it. This kind of vibe, this music, I don't want to brighten up all the top end. I want it to be a warmer sound, a rounder sound. And actually, just in case any of those sample sounds I've used have got those high peaks, which I noticed on the EQ earlier that there was some like little high peaks popping out, I'm just going to roll off like 3 dB of 16,000 hertz, which is really, it's not that significant, but it's going to be just taming that top end, just stop it being too bright. And so didn't want to push the low end on this, and there's very little EQ going on. I like this sort of the moderate low end on this. It's there, it's controlled, not too subby, and I think that contributes to the musical vibe of it. There's a lot of extra like dramatic, weird, crunchy sounds going on. And parallel compression is just extra density and energy. So if you're working with energetic music, always look at parallel compression. Actually doing it at this point of the process is quite rare for me. I always do parallel compression in the mix. I'll set up my buses, my drum bus, my synths, keyboards bus, guitars, whatever, instrument buses, vocal bus, bass bus, and then I will do parallel compression at that level if it's relevant, and I'll make it sound big across all of those different instrument groups. So actually this was kind of a last minute little thought I had, but to me it sounds a little bit more in that realm of squashed, which I was mentioned at the beginning. I actually wanted this to sound like it had been squashed a bit, and it's bringing out that vocal. So quickly what I'm going to do is bounce this out and then re-import the file, sorry, so you can see like what it looks like. It probably looked ridiculous, like a big sausage. So importing that back in the session, there we go. Top one is the pre-mastered one, bottom one is the mastered one. It's not that sausagey, and we can hear the difference. So first one, second one. Quite dramatic difference. First one peaking at minus 4-ish dB, let's get to the loud bit. That's that one, and then the mastered one. We can look at the loudness. There we go. So minus 10 integrated LUFS. Not bad. So yeah, I'm happy with that master. I've noticed a couple of things I might go back and change in the mix actually. I'm going to do a little bit of a side chain with the bass and the kick drum. This track was pulled together quite quickly using Apple loops, and in that session I didn't really do a lot of mixing. I did mostly just a little bits of EQ and enhancing. So one thing I probably should have done is actually gone in and made that kick drum a bit more pronounced, because I can feel that it needs a bit more of a punchy kick drum. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to set up a side chain, maybe use track spacer, so that the bass track, that synthesizer bass, will duck when the kick drum hits. Right now that's not happening. You know, this has got a low, deep vocal, and it's not even really a proper singer. It's been re-pitched down. If there was a lead vocal in this, all of those high frequencies would have been occupying quite a lot of space in the mix, so I wouldn't really have pushed the saturation that much on those. It's going to be fatiguing, and it's going to it would make the song kind of feel a bit too in your face. But yeah, and for the purposes of this track, I think I'm happy with that master. It has a certain rawness. It has a certain, like, you know, cut and paste vibe, and I feel like the master just needed to enhance all of that. It's not it's not a pop tune. I mean, it hasn't got a major lead vocal that I'm really having to kind of fine tune and finesse. So if you listen to that and then listen to the original, yeah, it's pretty full on. Let me know what you think. I don't do mastering that commonly. I have done it for people, and I would be happy to do it for people, but I would always preface that with saying, you know, this isn't my specialization. I'm not doing this to the same level of forensicness as a proper mastering engineer would. So yeah, just want to caveat that. Cool, hope you enjoyed. Take it easy.